Hey everybody, my name is Jeremy Britt. I want to welcome you to my new web series, Breaking It Down, where we take a bipartisan look at the issues you need to know about and the impact they can have on your lives. Let's get into it. So tonight, I want to talk about something that we all hold near and dear to our hearts. That's right, you guessed it, our constitutional rights. And no, I'm not talking about that one. Nope, not that one either. For now, I want to focus on the one that was so important. The framers listed it first. Now, if you don't already know, the First Amendment states that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Wow. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Let's break that down a little further. So Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Ah, the freedom of speech. That inalienable right we love to cite whenever we try to justify our realness. So, time for the $1 million question. Is all speech covered by this amendment? Or more importantly, should it be? I want to bring your attention to Snyder v. Phelps, a landmark case decided by the Supreme Court back in 2011. Marine Lance Corporal Matthew Snyder died in the line of duty while stationed in Iraq. His father, the petitioner in this case, chose to lay his son to rest in their hometown of Westminster, Maryland, and he decided to hold a funeral in the Catholic Church. On this day, Mr. Snyder found himself in the midst of an impossible situation of which no parent wishes to experience. And not for the reasons you might think. Why, you might ask? Well, several states over in Topeka, Kansas, Fred Phelps, founder of Westboro Baptist Church, learned of this funeral. And as he had done nearly 600 times before, Mr. Phelps made plans to picket yet another military funeral. He and 6 of his family members traveled to Maryland. They stood on public land, adjacent to public streets, near the Maryland State House, the U.S. Naval Academy, and finally, the funeral of Lance Corporal Matthew Snyder. They held signs at each location with statements that read, "God hates the USA. America is doomed. Thank God for IEDs. Thank God for dead soldiers. Priests rape boys. God hates fags. You're going to hell, and God hates you." I know. I know. That's some pretty hateful speech, right? But hey, look at the bright side. At least they worked with local law enforcement to set up their protest. Oh, yeah, and they didn't yell or use profanity. I mean, even Mr. Snyder didn't see what was written on their signs. That is, until he turned on the local news after the funeral. So, no harm done, right? Well, that's not what Mr. Snyder thought. He decided to file suit, alleging that Phelps and his parishioners committed several constitutional torts to include defamation, publicity given to private life, intentional infliction of emotional distress, intrusion upon seclusion, and civil conspiracy. The district court ended up giving summary judgment to the Westboro crew on the claims of defamation and publicity given to private life, because the judge didn't believe that Snyder could prove the necessary elements of these particular torts. I know it sucks, right? But some good did come of this case. The court proceeded to hear the remaining tort claims, and the jury found Westboro guilty. They were ordered to pay Snyder a total of roughly $11 million, $2.9 million in compensatory damages, and $8 million in punitive. Man, that's a lot of money. Makes you want to keep your mouth shut, am I right? No? Okay, I continue. Of course, none of us would be surprised to hear that Phelps and the rest of the Westboro crew decided to appeal this decision. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit found that their statements were, in fact, entitled to First Amendment protection because they addressed matters of public concern, were not provably false, and were expressed solely through hyperbolic rhetoric. Ah, sweet vindication. Don't worry, though, Snyder wasn't down for long. He decided to take his case to the highest court in the land. So what do you guys think happened next? Did the court find in favor of Snyder, the grieving father, or Westboro, the very people responsible for the emotional pain that exacerbated his grief? In an 8-1 decision, the court found in favor of, drumroll please, Phelps and his parishioners. The plurality opinion of the court was that the decision to hold Westboro liable for their First Amendment speech hinged on whether the speech in question was of public or private concern. They stated that because Westboro was addressing public matters with their protests such as homosexuality in the military, the fate of the U.S., the political and moral conduct of the U.S., and the scandals surrounding the Catholic Church. Yeah, you know the ones I'm talking about. Their speech could be protected under the First Amendment. Justice Alito dissented from this opinion. He stated that the speech of Westboro was not public, but private. He cited an online post created by the protesters not long after they left the funeral titled, "The Burden of Marine Lance Corporal Matthew A. Snyder, the visit of Westboro Baptist Church to help the inhabitants of Maryland connect the dots." This post called out the Snyders, implying that Matthew's death was caused by the way they chose to raise him. And I'll quote, "God blessed you, Mr. and Mrs. Snyder, with a resource, and his name was Matthew. He was an arrow in your quiver. And thanks to God for the comfort the child could bring you, you had a duty to prepare that child to serve the Lord his God, period. And you did just the opposite. You raised him for the devil. Albert and Julie ripped that body apart, taught Matthew to defy his creator, to divorce and to commit adultery. They taught him how to support the largest pedophile machine in the history of the entire world, the Roman Catholic monstrosity. Every dime they gave the Roman Catholic monster, they condemned their own souls. They also, in supporting satanic Catholicism, taught Matthew to be an idolater. Then, after all that, they sent him to fight for the United States of Sodom, a filthy country that is in lockstep with his evil, wicked, and sinful manner of life, putting him in the crosshairs of a God that was so mad he had smoke coming from his nostrils and fire from his mouth. How dumb was that? Looks like they were sending a couple shots to me. What do y'all think? According to Justice Alito, these posts made the speech used in the protest private, directed at a private citizen. He stated Westboro could have chosen any church or gone back to the State House or Navy Academy that day, but they chose to pick at Matthew Snyder's funeral because of the potential publicity they would receive. He also goes on to state that even protected speech is not equally permissible in all places and at all times. Therefore, individuals such as Westboro are not exempt from the reach of government. Their speech is subject to reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions that are consistent with precedents established by the court in Clark v. Community for Creative Nonviolence. Okay, so quick side note. In 1982, the Community for Creative Nonviolence, or CCNV for short, received a renewable permit for the National Park Service. With it, they plan to stage a demonstration in Lafayette Park and the mall in D.C. The demonstration will require them to set up and sleep in tent cities in the park. The purpose was to bring attention to the homeless and their plight. However, the Park Service denied CCNV's request, citing anti-camping regulations in their reasoning. So in the 7-2 decision, the court held that these regulations did not violate the First Amendment. The court noted that expression is subject to reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions, and that the manner of the protest was at odds with the government's interest in maintaining the condition of the parks. The court argued that the Park Service did not attempt to ban all sleeping in the public parks, only in certain areas, and that the protesters had alternative means of communicating their message. Just like Phelps could have done. I can't help but agree with Justice Alito's opinion, and I wish that this had been the plurality opinion of the court at the time. Because just consider the potential this case has to affect us socially and politically moving forward. Well, actually, we no longer have to wonder, do we?
A federal court trial begins in Charlottesville, Virginia tomorrow. At issue, whether the organizers of the deadly 2017 Unite the Right March are accountable for what the plaintiffs charge was an unlawful conspiracy, not a spontaneous rally that turned violent. 9 residents of Charlottesville, injured over 2 days, are seeking financial damages from about 24 organizers of the right-wing extremist protest. One of those protesters, who drove his car into a crowd of peaceful counter-protesters and killed 32-year-old Heather Heyer, was convicted of murder 2 years ago. This civil lawsuit is the first in many years to use a law from 1871, known as the Ku Klux Klan Act, which was designed to strengthen protections for victims of racial violence. It charges that the 2017 organizers conspired to harm people of color and Jews. The defendants in the trial have claimed they were exercising First Amendment rights and that there was no conspiracy. But the federal judge overseeing the case ruled that the 1871 Act and other state and federal laws do apply.
Because we've lived it. We're still living it. Some people now see it as socially acceptable to confront members of their community for looking different or being a member of an opposing political party, subjecting them to vicious verbal assaults, all while hiding behind their First Amendment rights. But should such speech be protected? It is often being said in public places or on public lands. They are speaking on an issue of public concern. According to the decision in Snyder v. Phelps, this type of speech should be protected. But we know that words hurt and they can inspire action. Just look at what happened on January 6, 2021. Words incited violence. Words inspired citizens to rebel against their democratically elected government officials. Those same elected officials who in the months and years prior chose to make their fringe beliefs issues of public concern. It's so easy to maintain power by stoking fear in the populace. But where has that gotten us? We must always remember that words embolden us to take action, good or bad. With that in mind, we have an obligation to inspire others with our words in a positive and impactful way. Therefore, public speech should never be so negative as to cause emotional distress, because this in turn could lead the party harmed to lash out, physically harming themselves or others in the process. While Snyder v. Phelps leaves us free to express how we feel publicly, it also leaves us vulnerable to the potentially negative outcomes that may result from hateful speech. In the end, protection should not be extended to harmful or hate-filled speech, whether public or otherwise. Whether it's negative speech towards someone immigrating to this country to build a better life for themselves and their family, or someone who looks different than the majority of the community, or someone deciding to have an abortion because they're not ready to start a family. What about speech against someone loving who they choose to love, or deciding that they finally want to look on the outside the way they've always felt on the inside? First Amendment protection should not be extended to speech that attacks individuals who are just trying to live their lives. Or in the case of Snyder v. Phelps, celebrate the lives of those they have lost. The civility of our society should be protected at all costs. I pray that in the future, the court will change its opinion on this issue to reflect those more in line with Justice Alito's. Hopefully, before it's too late and we are no longer able to repair the social bonds of our society. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. And while you're at it, let me know what you want to hear about on the next episode of Breaking It Down. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
I got 5, 4, 3,